Jones Evans. Mae rhan o'r adroddiad yn siarad mynd i'r cynllun trafnidiaeth hefyd. Mae Annelias mewn cyfarfod arall o ran y trafnidiaeth, felly mi fydd Nicola yn cyflwyno'r papur yna dan eitem 6 yn credu ni. Felly, os yna ragor ymddeiriadau, please. Na, dim byd. Felly, ymlaen ni at eitem 3, datgan diddordeb, disclosure of interest. Os yna rhywun mae'n datgan hyd yma? Os oes rhywbeth yn codi yn ystod trafodaethau, bod mae'n datgan jyst yn eich yn sylw i ato fe beth yna. Felly, ymlaen at eitem 4, cofnodion cyfarfodaethau gath i gynnal, oedd nhw ar 10 ar 20 o Gorffennaf. Lle cael rhywun i gynnig gynta o ran cywirdeb y cofnodion, please. Gareth, diolch yn fawr. James yn apus? Ie, felly ni'n 3 yn apus gyda ni, cynnig gyda Gareth, eilio gyda James. Felly, pwyntiau yn codi o'r cyfarfod. Mae yna pwyntiau gweithredu yn dilyn y cyfarfod. Felly, da miwn â Nicola yn yma. Mae gen i llythyron i'r gweiniadogion ers y reshuffle yn y cabinet a hefyd gweiniadogion San Steffan ran hynny hefyd. A hefyd yr aelodau seneddol sydd yn cyfro Ceredigion a Fowys. Anything else to report on that one, Nicola? Perhaps you might as well give us an update. We don't think we've had any responses, Nicola.
No, I can confirm all the letters have gone, but we're awaiting responses.
Okay, diolch, Nicola. Yeah, perhaps in the meantime, if we do get a reply, perhaps if you can share those with Gareth, James and myself anyway. Yeah, just to see what they say, and we can organise perhaps a meeting with them then anyway, face to face or whatever then anyway. Good, diolch yn fawr iawn. Felly ymlaen at eitem 5, diweddariad i sbwyllio cynllunio datblygu strategol. Felly Sarah Groves Phillips sy'n cyflwyno hwn. Felly prawn da, Sarah.
Prawn da, good afternoon. Yes, I'm taking you through the paper. You've had it as a part of the agenda pack. It's paper number 5, which starts on page 13. Essentially, there are 2 main recommendations. 1, to note the progress and update on actions undertaken to date, and 2, for members to consider and agree the proposed recommendations of the SDP subcommittee workshop, noting in particular the intention not to meet the deadline of the Minister in respect of a delivery agreement. I'll come to explain that in more terms in a minute. So essentially, on the 13th of June 2024, we had a workshop of the SDP subcommittee, which is made up of members and officers from the 3 authorities, Powys, Ceredigion and Banau Brycheiniog. We gave an update on each of the positions, if you like, of each of the authorities. So in regards to Ceredigion, our LDP remains on pause. Banau Brycheiniog have confirmed that they've sought approval to withdraw their previous replacement LDP and work towards a delivery agreement for the end of this financial year. So what that means in practice is that if and when their delivery agreement is signed off by the Minister, they're on a path to replacement LDP preparation, and that's usually a 4-year period. Powys is currently undergoing its replacement LDP. They're approximately 12 months behind schedule. It's not uncommon in LDP plan making. And they expect to be going out to consultation. In fact, might actually be out to consultation now on their preferred strategy, because this was written prior to the going out. So at the workshop, we discussed other CJC regions and their SDP preparation. We noted that they're all at different stages effectively and taking different positions. The Southeast region seems to be the most likely to be able to publish a delivery agreement within the Minister's timeframe, which of note is within this calendar year, not financial year. The North region are considering their options and haven't made a firm decision, and the Southwest have confirmed that they don't have resources available at present to progress an SDP and have written to Welsh Government to that effect. They also note the lack of a SDP manual as a barrier to SDP production. So we don't expect that the North or the Southwest will submit a delivery agreement within the Minister's timeframe. So we had various discussions at the workshop over what we might do as a region. And there was quite strong concerns over the fact that we don't have an SDP manual. So we were issued a draft approximately 18 months ago, which essentially was a carbon copy of an LDP manual. It had very little changes, but with some additionally required work. It was very prescriptive and requires a number of stages. There was some feeling amongst the group, the workshop, that actually an SDP manual needs to be a bit more flexible to allow the regions to do it differently, effectively. That is not what was currently prepared in the draft manual. Since that time, we've heard from Welsh Government that it's unlikely to be produced this year, and they're working towards potentially late spring next year for publication. Now, it is worth mentioning that was said last year as well. So it's not clear at this stage when it will be sent out. But we would hope, excuse me, we would hope that given the sort of significant consultation that was returned to Welsh Government over the inflexibility of the document and the very prescribed nature of it, that we could see changes. Now, it remains to be seen whether that will occur or not. But at the moment, starting a delivery agreement without that information, without that confirmation, would feel premature. So we agree with the Southwest region in that regard. So we had quite an open and frank debate at that meeting, with a lot of discussion over whether or not there should be a separately resourced SDP team, or whether the current planning policy teams of each of the three authorities could form a team. Again, it's with Powys and Bannau Brycheiniog undertaking their LDP, they don't have any spare capacity, if you like, to support a sort of made team from the three authorities. And Ceredigion, it's not necessarily in the best interest of an SDP, when it's supposed to reflect regional working, to be made up of solely one team. So there are still some number of questions to answer in terms of resources, really, as well as budgets. So a further reason that we don't feel it's appropriate at this time to submit a delivery agreement is that when you submit that delivery agreement, you should have your budget in place for the whole of the plan period, which is a 5-year period. And we know from previous documents circulated to the CJC and the SDP, the expected cost, or the anticipated cost of an SDP, is approximately £2.8 million. So that's a budget requirement we would need to have established, if you like, which at present time it hasn't. So as a result of these conversations, it was agreed at the workshop that we should follow sort of 4 steps. The first being that Ceredigion County Council would remain the lead authority for this financial year, given the regional work commitments of the other policy teams. That the CJC leadership progress discussions at a ministerial level, as it's also worth noting that since with this workshop and today, there has been 2 or 3 different ministers with this portfolio. So in a way, the delay is actually positive, really, because that means we know now who is going to be for the foreseeable. The CJC progressed discussions at a ministerial level as to whether it was a requirement or a recommendation to submit a delivery agreement by the end of this calendar year, because the letter wasn't clear in that regard. Now, obviously, if it's a requirement, we may need a different conversation, but the actual concerns over the manual and the budget will remain. Those haven't been set, so we wouldn't really be in a position to do it even if it was a requirement rather than a recommendation. As a result of the discussions in section 2, should discussions resolve it is a recommendation, then that submission of a delivery agreement would be premature without appropriate resources, support and an SDP manual in place. That was the overwhelming consensus of the group. And that work should progress to utilise the replacement LDP preparation to form the building blocks of a future SDP. So in this regard, we have an officer working group. We want to agree methodologies. We want to make sure that the LDPs being undertaken by Powys and Bannau Brycheiniog feed into the SDP. We don't want, we want to make those early connections so that when we start SDP properly, if you like, we've already outlined and agreed sort of settlement hierarchies and broad methodologies. So in order to facilitate that, we set up a working group, and we might look at joint commissioning of evidence base, for example. And also sharing of knowledge and information that we all currently hold anyway, to ensure that everybody's got it. So the recommendations for the group effectively are to note the progress and the narrative update on the actions undertaken, for members to consider and agree the proposed recommendations of the subcommittee, noting the intention that we won't meet the deadline of the minister in respect of submitting a delivery agreement by the end of this calendar year, and for the CJC to liaise with Welsh Government, confirming a commitment to prepare a delivery agreement for submission when sufficient resources and capacity become available from the constituent authorities following the adoption of replacement LDPs. So I'll leave it there for questions.
Diolch yn fawr, Sarah. Ie, bendant mae'n elfen o cart o flaen i ceffyl fan hyn, beth bynnag, ond gyda'r cynllun yma, mae rhaid bod e'n un iawn ar gyfer Ceredigion a Phywys hefyd, felly sim pwynt i ni hasti trwyddo fe wedig gyda'r sefyllfa'r ddoi ar diwrnod arall o ran i cynllun datblygu llun nhw hefyd, felly fi'n gytuno gyda'r hyn cododd yr is-bwyllgor beth bynnag, ond hapus i agor o lan. Yr unig beth byddwn ni'n gweud, fi wedi codi fe eisoes gyda cynghorydd Gibson Watt yw o ran yr RTP. Mae eisiau bod hwnnw'n plethu mewn i hwn hefyd, achos os na llwybr buses i gael, mewn rhyw ardal penodol, dylen ni ddim bod yn cynllunio yn yr ardal yna hefyd, felly mae rhaid bod hwnnw, dyle i bod yn cryfau'r llall os chi deall beth sy'n gyda fi beth yna. Ond o ran, Sarah, beth yw wedi ymateb di o ran yr RTP i ddechrau beth yna, a na i agor o lan fyny i Gareth a James.
So in terms of the RTP and SDP meshing, if you like, it's not really not possible, and it wouldn't have been even if we'd started SDP, for example, 6 months ago. We wouldn't have been in a position to ensure that the RTP was fully SDP proofed. But what we have done is make sure that in all the RTP working groups, members of the Ceredigion policy team who are leading the SDP at this stage are in attendance, are providing information. We've supported Anne in terms of settlement strategies and hierarchies across the 3 regions. So we've done that on the basis of the currently published LDPs. We've also provided information to Anne and the RTP consultants about the direction of travel that the different authorities are looking at going, so she can see where the changes are expected. But the current RTP, and this is agreed across the board really in all 4 of the regions and by Welsh Government, will be a reflection of the current LDPs rather than the forward nature of an SDP, because simply those decisions haven't been made. However, in terms of where our kind of key strategic settlements are, we don't envision a massive difference between what we published 5 years ago, for example, to what we'll publish in 5 years' time, because Aberystwyth, Newtown, Welshpool, Brecon, these are our key settlements, and that's what will be reflected in the RTP. It's more the case that the smaller, sort of more peripheral settlements may not have had their full regard in the RTP as perhaps they would in any future decision making, but that's to be made. So we've given detailed feedback on the draft RTPs as well and attended all the workshops. So I feel comfortable to say that as much planning policy input from the 3 regions given through Ceredigion has been provided to the RTP, and I'm hopeful that we will get an RTP that's reflective of planning policy across the region.
Diolch, Sarah. Iawn, da mewn Gareth ar atgwyff please, Gareth.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for the work that's gone into this and support, obviously, the direction we're going forward. I have got some concerns around Bannabod Ceiniog and our capacity level around this and our input into the SDP. If you look at our funding, real terms cut from 2011 is around 41%, and when we talk about the authorities and our overall capacity of finance within the national parks for Bannabod Ceiniog, we're also picking up 2 other areas that will be obviously will have to feed into the CJCs. So I have got some concerns around capacity and us being diluted as a partner within this and the other CJCs. And I would just plead that obviously as we go forward that the case for national parks, if proper funding is put forward, otherwise you'll have me sitting here just saying nothing each month, and we will be done too, and that's not the partnership we want, because I think obviously the other parts that are going to fall into this, especially around transport and economics, are going to fall into this, and we're going to play a key part in that. But what we could end up with in Powys is a section of Powys that is not represented because it's within the planning authority, the Brecon Beacons, Bannabod Ceiniog. My concern is that it's concerning when you think of our annual budget is £5.5 million when you look at your authorities. Just putting that on record of my concern.
Na, digon teg, Gareth, fi'n siŵr ni yn cydweithio gyda'n partneriaid beth bynnag. Sarah, do you want to come back on anything Gareth mentioned there?
No, just you know, I fully acknowledge Councillor Gareth William Ratcliffe's concerns about funding. The SDP is a very costly document to do, and it will take a significant amount of resources. And at the moment, unfortunately, we don't have the answers as to how we can do this. It's not been like the RTP, where Welsh Government have provided funding. There has been no funding provided so far to the SDP, and that's a hill we've got to climb going forward, really.
Wel, mae hwnna'n un o'r cwestiynau ni'n holi beth bynnag de. Felly, allwn ni dal lobio Llywodraeth Cymru o ran yr ariannu iawn beth bynnag Sarah. Felly, diolch fawr ti. James, please.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely happy with the recommendations in the paper, but I just wondered whether we have or need to signal to Welsh Government and Natural Resources Wales the complications to the operation of CJC that would occur should the proposed or the possible extension of the Clwydian Range area of outstanding natural beauty into a national park status and extending it down into part of the Mid Wales region. How are we going to fit that into the preparation of the SDP, let alone Paris's LDP? So this is all becoming horribly complicated. And I just wonder whether Welsh Government has given that any thought.
So pe bydde, Parc Cenedlaethol newydd yn cael ei greu, os eisiau ni adolygu'r SDP a bod ni wedi mabwysiadu yn Sarah?
Possibly, yes, but more importantly, they would be a strategic partner, just as Banau Brycheiniog is in this work, and so therefore we need to make sure that that range, that park, is included in the decision making. So again, to my mind, it's a further reason that now is not the appropriate time to begin an SDP. So we make sure that the relevant parks, such as they exist now and may exist at some point in the future, are included in the decision making. But to answer Councillor James Gibson-Watt's question, I haven't raised that, if I'm honest, with Welsh Government, because I was kind of awaiting to see what the consultation came back and looked like and what the direction of travel might be. And then that would definitely be something we would need to have a conversation, more than one, about how we sort of integrate that going forward.
Okay, when I hear the words LDP and review in the same sentence, there's a cost implication as well. So, we need to be mindful of that with the new partner as well anyway. So perhaps, again, we should be asking the questions now, Sarah.
Yeah, when the opportunity comes forward, I'll make sure that's on my radar to speak to them as and when we get a chance.
Yeah, diolch, Sarah. Gareth, please. Gareth Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to update on the outline that Sarah gave on resources. The National Park Authority is a member of both the South East Wales and South West Wales CJC as well, so we're party to those discussions on the SDP, and both those CJCs are raising similar concerns as Mid Wales on the resource implications of the SDP, and both are looking to have a joined up conversation with Welsh Government. So I suggest that we could usefully be party to that and come with a CJC overall approach to Welsh Government in terms of the resource pressures that we're facing in taking forward the SDP.
Okay,
Thanks.
on that point, then, Gareth, collectively as the existing chairs of all the CJCs, should we be making that sort of approach then? That we're talking as one towards Welsh Government and just putting it out there. Emma, I'm not sure. You got your hand up, Emma. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so there was recently a meeting of chief execs of the CJC with Welsh Government officials, so civil servants, and the points that Gareth was making, they were raised at that session. Reg Kilpatrick was the senior civil servant that was there. So there is still it'll be interesting actually, I think, to see then with the new minister as well, the response. So we've got a local visit scheduled in the coming weeks. So I think we could use the opportunity to raise that point through that mechanism, see where the discussions go, and then we might want to follow up, as say, collectively with chairs of other CJCs or chief execs of other CJCs to write forward with a a unanimous position on the matter.
So just to move on this then, Nicola, is this something that you could coordinate between the chief execs and the chairs anyway?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I could take an action for that, Chair.
Okay, action plan. James a Gareth, are you happy? Chi'n hapus gyda'r approach yna? Okay, good. Diolch yn fawr i chi. So that's it on the SDP then. We've got 3 recommendations. Clive, are you happy for us to take all 3 together?
Yes, Chair. Sorry, difficulty in unmuting them.
Yeah, okay. Felly, Sarah read out the recommendations. We've got 3 anyway, so can I have a proposal on a second of those? James, happy? Yeah, I'm happy with that anyway. So, young Clive, and Gareth as well, so all 3 recommendations accepted. Good, diolch yn iawn i chi. Felly, ymlaen nawr is-bwyllgor llys, nage, diweddariad is-bwyllgor cynllunio trafnidiaeth rhanbarthol. Fel wedys i, Anne Elias yn methu bod yma, felly mi fydd Nicola yn adrodd nôl ar yr is-bwyllgor yma de.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so it's item 6 on the agenda, pages 17 to 18 in your pack, and the purpose of the report is to provide an update to the CJC on the work of the Regional Transport Planning Subcommittee. The decision sought from the paper is to note the content of the report, updating on the current work on the draft plan, together with an amended timeline for delivery of the plan. If I just take you through the paper briefly then, so obviously the CJC, as part of its legislation, has been asked to produce a regional transport plan, and it's required by the regulations and the guidance that has been provided and sent through from Welsh Government. Since your last committee on the 30th of June, the outline transport plan has been submitted to Welsh Government for feedback and comments. The Welsh Government have commented in detail on the plan, and it has been agreed that due to the timescales, these comments will be considered as part of the public consultation. The draft RTP plan and the required assessments as outlined within the guidance were presented to members and officers at a CJC workshop on the 10th of September, where it was concluded that some further refining of the RTP was needed. Therefore, it was decided that the timeline for delivery of the RTP would need to be amended. This is outlined in your report as follows. So the draft RTP and assessments following the work redefining it will take place from the 1st of October to the 18th of November. After this time, the report will be subject to translation and the assessments that are included with it. The report then will be presented to the CJC subcommittee on the 21st of January for approval. The report then, subject to approval from the subcommittee, will go to the Corporate Joint Committee, full committee, on the 28th of January. We will then go out to public consultation for a period of 8 weeks during February and March. Consultation for the report and amendments will be completed by the beginning of May. It'll then be subject to further assessment from Welsh Government and comments, and we hope to have a final document in place by August 2025. So the recommendation in the report is to note the content of the report and further to the timeline that was agreed previously by the Corporate Joint Committee. The timeline has been amended to reflect the further work that's needed in refining the document. So CJC is asked to approve that timeline.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, Nicola. Os yna cwestiynau neu sylwadau? I nodi'r cynnwys i ni beth bynnag, ond hapus i trafod. Na. Dim byd. Clive, you come in then, please.
Chair, I just have one question with regard to the opportunity for the scrutiny committee to consider the RTP. And Nicola, I know there was some correspondence in emails this week about taking this to a meeting in November, but when it wasn't complete, and I'm just wondering whether you've had some further thoughts about when it would be appropriate to go to scrutiny, please.
Yeah, so I have liaised with the programme manager and Alliance, and we've timetabled that in now to go to December meeting of scrutiny, when they will actually have the full document to scrutinise.
I think that's really sensible. Thank you, Nicola.
Okay, diolch Nicola. Diolch Clive. Felly, James, Gareth, happy to note? Okay, all in agree. Good, thank you. Diolch yn fawr i chi, diolch Nicola. Nesa, mae da fi Rhys Bwyllgor Lles Economaidd, diweddar a llafar hwn. Felly, over to you again, Clive.
Yes, Chair. Members will recall that at its meeting in July, the CJC made a recommendation that we to the cabinets of both local authorities in connection with the economic well-being function. The recommendation was that both councils jointly accept the delegation of the CJC's economic well-being function, and that function then be sub-delegated to the Mid Wales Growth Deal Board. Chair, members, that Growth Wheel Board has been set up by an IAA with both councils. So that's an inter-authority agreement with both councils. Chair, I have drafted the report for consideration by both cabinets, but in it, as attached to that report, I have to set out the amendments which are required to that inter-authority agreement. We did have a meeting with officers at the beginning of September to discuss the amendments, and I now have instructions with regard to that. Members, I have made 15 amendments to date. I've got a few more sections to go through. I'm not quite there, and I apologise for not doing it before this meeting. I had intended to do so, but it just hasn't been possible. I'm nearly there, and when those amendments have been finalised, I'll of course send them to Ellen in Ceredigion to have a look through, and then we can take it through to both cabinets.
So this is not time sensitive then, Clive?
Not time sensitive, no.
Okay. Any questions or comments, James or Gareth? No, just a note anyway, and yeah, we'll see it when it arrives anyway. So.
Thank you, Chair.
Good, diolch yn iawn i chi. Felly ni'n mynd mlaen o'r hwylog fan hyn. Felly nesaf mae adroddiad ar safonau'r Gymraeg ar gyfer y cydbwyllgor. Mae llythyr yn dod o'r Comisiynydd Iaith a Enweifion Evans fel prif weithredwr CJC ar y pryd oedd hwnnw nôl yn Ebrill, ond erbyn awr Emma sydd yn y swydd na, felly bydd Emma yn mynd â ni trwy hwn, felly over to you, Emma.
Councillor Bryan, I'm going to take the report.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So the purpose of the report is to present the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee the final Welsh language compliance notice we've received under section 44, the Welsh language measures. And the decision sought from the report is for the Corporate Joint Committee to adopt the compliance notice, which is in Appendix 2 of the report, and also to agree that the CJC adopts the annual report of Powys County Council in its reporting requirements to the Welsh Language Commissioner. So in the body of the report, the introduction gives the background as to how corporate joint committees are subject to the same compliance as local authorities. And we had the compliance notice served on us with an imposition date of 30th of April 2024. So after this date, the Commissioner and his officers will be doing some work scrutinising the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee to ensure that we are compliant with the standards it has adopted, which is the Powys County Council standards. As you will be aware, the standards, expectations of how CJCs must operate in Wales to partners, stakeholders and the public, and they must promote the language through its services. So very similar to the two constitutional authorities. So members will recall that the Corporate Joint Committee considered the consultation of this work on the 12th of October last year, where we raised no specific issues with the proposal. And under section 54, the Welsh language measure and organisation, we were given a compliance notice which we may appeal against. In that meeting, the following, the consultation and the meeting of CJC on the 29th of January, the following agreements were reached, the recommendations. The first being that Powys County Council that the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee adopts Powys County Council's Welsh language standards as a baseline for compliance with the Welsh language regulations. The second one was that Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee will work to progress to improve its adopted Welsh language standards. The third being the annual reporting requirements for the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee will be in line with the existing arrangements for the two local authorities. The first report due by June 2025. And number 4 there was the extent to which the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee promotional activities could be incorporated into existing strategies of the relevant local authorities when their next step for review. So the two appendices there, you've got the letter from the Commissioner itself, informing us of the compliance notice, and then Appendix 2 is the actual standards themselves, which are some 176 standards which are imposed on the Mid Wales CJC. So we're asking today, please, Chair, that the standards are adopted by the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee, and that the Joint Committee agrees to use the annual reporting structure in line with the imposed standards of Powys County Council in its report to the Welsh Language Commissioner.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Nicola. Bersonol fi'n hapus gyda'r ddau argymhelliad yna i agor ar nawr. James neu Gareth, any comments or questions on this one?
No, nothing to add. Obviously, I'm so happy to support the adoption.
Diolch, Gareth. James, please. You're on mute.
Sorry, so sorry. Yes, common sense recommendations I'm very happy to support. Thank you.
Good, diolch yn fawr iawn, James. Felly, cyn bod ni'n mynd i bleidlais yr un, Clive, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify one thing which Nicola said during the course of her presentation. I think she indicated that the imposition date was April 2024, but members will see from page 27 of the document that it's actually the 30th of October 2024, and hence it's being approved today. So I thought I'd just clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, predetermination, yes. Okay. Diolch yn fawr, Clive. Felly, James a Gareth cynnig ag eilydd a tri ni'n hapus gyda nodi ar argymhellion beth bynnag. Felly, diolch yn iawn, Nicola, for that. A dyna ni, syniad wedi cysylltu gyda fi ynglyn â unrhyw fusnes arall, ond nawr i cyfle os chi moyn, gan bod ni wedi mynd trwy'r agenda eitha da. Os yna gwestiynau neu sylwadau bellach ar wahân i'r agenda? Na. Yeah, so just one thing to follow up on then, Nicola, perhaps if you can update us if you get an answer before the next meeting anyway. So the next meeting is on the 28th of January, within yr 20 o Ionawr, a wedyn ni cynta o Ebrill, ni'n mynd mlaen i blwyddyn nesaf yn barod. Felly, os nag os dim byd arall gyda rhywun i weid. Diolch yn iawn i chi am y presenoldeb. Thank you for attending, and we'll speak soon anyway. Felly, hwyl o'r i chi.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
you, members.
Yeah, Gareth, could you stay on, Gareth?
Councillor Edwin, I think everybody's left the meeting now.
All right. Oh, sorry, I was trying to hold Gareth on.
Oh, right. Can you ring him separately?
Yeah, I'll try now. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Ta-ta.
Hwyl.